What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today I am joined by Jordan, aka Sauce, for an interview here regarding his very interesting Iden double blue deck that won the Richmond 4K event. So, how's it going, Jordan?
Pretty good, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So I think a lot of the viewers are going to be really interested to see this. I have the deck list here, but as you can see, it is a double blue Iden list. So what brought you to play double blue?
I had been playing Iden Red for a long while, like even before the kind of blue-red decks got popular when they won Florida. It the idea behind the deck was always it was pretty good against Boba, so that's why a lot of people were playing it. But it turns out that you don't really need red against Boba. Like all the
In,
stuff that's good against Boba is blue.
mm, interesting.
Like open fire and force choke, they don't do anything to Boba.
Yeah, I had
So
noticed actually when I was playing Iden Red that like open fire is a lot better against kind of the Sabine aggro deck or something than it is against Boba because a lot of Boba's units either have shields or they have higher HP.
yeah, and you don't really want to give them the 2-for-1 with force choke either, even though it can kill like a boss or something. It's just you didn't really need it, like entrenched and takedown and vigilance. Those super laser blasts, those are all the really good cards against Boba. See, I didn't need the red to do what the deck was functionally built to do anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so then you decided to switch from playing Iden Red to playing Double Blue Iden. When did you make that switch in your like testing process?
I honestly it was probably 4 or 5 days before the Richmond tournament.
Nice. And at that point you had figured out, hey, I don't think red is helping me that much against Boba. I think I can beat these aggro decks without it too. Like let's go for the double blue.
Yeah, it just gets really difficult for the aggro decks to kind of keep up with all the healing that's going on in the deck, obviously. But does really well against the aggro decks too.
Yeah. As a big Sabine player, I think that Vigilance for 6 is already an annoying card. Vigilance for 4 is horrible. Like, sometimes you can get into a situation where maybe, via the use of Metal Ceremony or whatever, you can get your units, like, or Wing Leader, whatever, try to get your important units out of range, but it's still often a kill and a heal 5 at the same time, which is really nasty.
Yeah, you have to be a little careful with it. I actually did make one mistake in the semifinals. I was playing against Red Sabine, and I played Vigilance, but he had a Dodonna out. So
Mm.
technically, I could not kill his A-Wing, or yeah, his
Oh,
A-Wing.
that's nasty.
But since I played the card, I still had to announce legal modes for the card.
So
That
you
was
do
the
like
only
heal five
mistake.
and a shield or what?
I didn't even have a unit out. I don't really have a whole lot of units. I had to heal 5 and mill him, which is
Oh, that's
not,
nasty.
yeah, a little bad, but it was okay. It was the only real mistake I made all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of those situations where there's kind of there's the marginal thing where it's like, would it have been better to do this or this? And it's kind of a decision and it's not clear which one is like good or bad. And like maybe you do those and they don't end up good for you, but like you hope to avoid the like really major blunders where you play a card in like a situation where it doesn't work or whatever that is. And, having just one of those and you went on to win that match, right?
Yeah, I beat 2 Sabine Reds in the day.
Nice.
Garrett was the one in the what it was semifinals. He's actually kind of local to me. I've never met him personally, but I met him at the tournament, which was pretty cool.
Okay. And and so what were you seeing in the meta? You said you were targeting Boba. Did you see a lot of Boba? Did you see a lot of Sabine?
I saw a whole lot of Sabine at the tournament, but as far as what I was targeting, the idea was I was expecting there to be a lot of blue red like Vader and
Hmm.
maybe Iden Reds after the Florida 5K win. I was expecting
Right.
there to be way more of those than there actually were. I think there were like maybe 15 or so. It was a little under 10% of the total population of the tournament. And then I was expecting Boba, of course, because it's Boba. and then I was expecting Sabine. So my goal was to have a deck that was good against or favorable against all three of those, and it turns out it was favorable, pretty favorable against all three of those.
Nice. What would you say that your best matchup is, and what would you say that your worst matchup is with this build?
Uh, Vader Blue is the best matchup.
Okay.
It's in all of my testing for anything, it is the most lopsided, especially game one, lopsided match that I've ever played. It's something like 80 plus percent win rate.
Interesting. What makes it so lopsided?
Well, you got the Sparker Rebellions in the first in the main deck,
Hmm.
and if they're playing something like an approximation of Gee's list from Florida, they're only playing one restock. And the game you don't have enough threats to threaten each other in any way, shape, or form. So it's always going to be a mill, and if you
Got it.
get their restock, they just lose the game.
Got it. With the triple Spark of Rebellion, that gives you a big advantage in terms of sniping out that restock and putting yourself into the position where you can replenish your deck and they can't.
Yeah, you get to the point where like even if they have to like restock early, and if they restock early, you can like search your feelings for extra vigilance. You can also vigilance them quicker because you have search your feelings, and you have these turns where you just have all these resources you're not doing anything with anyway.
Yeah,
It's
let's talk about Search Your Feelings. That's a I think some people would consider that to be a very unusual card, but you said that it was very successful for you.
it was probably the MVP for me. I did play against a lot of Sabine decks, but even against Sabine, it's almost like functionally having six vigilances in the deck. And if you play three vigilance against Sabine, it's very difficult for them to win.
Got it. So you're using Search Your Feelings in that matchup to get Vigilant. Is it always Vigilance that you're searching for?
Uh, I think at one point I almost searched for a child sin, but
Hmm.
yeah, it was always vigilance against Sabine. Against Boba, I searched for Super Laser Blast, Vigilance, and Avenger, depending on what was going on.
Yeah, I could definitely see there being some scenarios in late game where you really want to have an Avenger.
Yeah,
Not as
Sabine. Once you get the Avenger out against Sabine, it's game over.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so yeah, I think that looking at this deck list, I think a lot of these cards are like, a lot of these cards are sort of cards that you would expect somebody to play with the spark of with. So like the restock looks odd, but I think if people have seen my previous coverage on Iden Red, they might know that that's like a key card for these mill-oriented control mirrors. And is that why you're running it as well? I sort of assume so.
Yeah, you have to have it, especially in a format where it's a 55-minute round, and you're expecting to play a lot of other control, vigilance control kind of decks. You just have to have them in your deck because most of the time you're going to play one game, and
Hmm.
after that you're not going to finish the second game. So whoever won that first game is going to win. That's why the sparks are in the main deck.
Got it. So yeah, yeah. So the spark, this actually costs 6 because it's double out of aspect for you. But because it's so critical in specifically that mill-oriented, like hard control mirror, you still want to have it in the build.
Yeah, you kind of need it again. Just the format, that first game is everything in the quote unquote mirror match with the vigilance control decks.
Yeah, so for viewers who might not be as familiar with this, the way that these control decks often work is because their removal is so good relative to the amount of threats that they have, it creates a situation where it's unlikely that either player is going to be able to win on the board. So they sort of shift into an alternate strategy where they use Vigilance's ability to discard 6 cards from the opponent's deck as an alternate win condition. Um, and then you see cards like Restock to refill your own deck, Spark of Rebellion here to snipe out your opponent's vigilances, and you're really just trying to enable that milling win.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only option. One more thing on restock. There's actually an interesting thing with search your feelings. So you can restock like 4 good cards or whatever, put it in on the bottom, and then search for something. You don't even have to search for one of those cards, but because search shuffles your deck, they're not effectively stuck on the bottom of your deck anymore.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I think so. Search Your Feelings and Restock have a little synergy there that might not be immediately apparent, both in terms of searching the card, but also just in terms of randomizing your deck.
Yeah, which is, I mean, if you get 2 or 3 vigilances and something else back, some removal back. It's pretty good to have those just floating around for options, at least for drawing.
Nice. So yeah, let's go through sort of your matches at the event. How did that play out?
So the first 2 rounds I played against 2 Leia Reds. It was kind of a blowout. Leia Red really wants units on the board to be able to do the things that she does to keep action economy and keep initiative and attack. It's just very difficult for them to win that matchup. Sabine has a better chance because she has like some better endgame reach
Yeah.
with just being Sabine in general. But yeah, they were fairly comfortable wins. Round 3, I played against a Vader Green, which is probably one of the worser matches. I'll be honest, this deck's probably not great against like the villain green ramp decks.
Okay.
I didn't do a lot of testing against them, especially after seeing Iden Green, quote unquote, not making top 16 in Florida.
Yeah, Florida had a really poor showing for Iden, and so at that point you were like, I don't think people are going to be on this.
Uh, I knew people were gonna be because there's gonna be people on virtually anything when you go to a tournament that's over 100 players. I just wasn't comfortable or I wasn't worried so much that I thought I needed to seriously test against it. But it turns out it's not a great matchup. The Vader Green player did double ramp both games that I played him. So he both resupplied and had Super Laser Blast or Super Laser Technician to play Vader out on like turn 5 or whatever.
Oh
So it was
yeah.
a yeah, I didn't have entrenched for the Vader at any point. So it was just kind of like I was unprepared. I I should have mulliganed harder for the entrenched and just gone on that. I did, and I did the thing where you're playing against Boba, you don't play like a Viper Pro Droid or something in the ground, so they can't get any value out their super laser. Completely forgot that Vader can just kill his own super laser tech.
Oh yeah, so he was able to use his leader ability to ping off his own super laser tech to ramp, even though you denied the ground arena.
Yep. So there were some mistakes there due to lack of preparation, but it's not a good matchup, to be
Okay.
honest.
But so after that kind of speed bump in round 3, I believe you had a bunch of Sabine games.
Yeah, the next 3 rounds were all Sabine. It was 2 Sabine greens in 4 and 5, and then a Sabine red in round 6. Sabine green, it's fairly comfortable to play it, to be honest. There's some play lines where you got to be a little careful. You really don't want them to keep their Sabine out going into round or the 5 resource turn, because then they can steadfast ECL it over your Childson,
Mm.
and it kind of just gets rid of all the momentum you had because Childson's so huge. So really, in general, it's you want to play your Childson out, of course, but then try and take initiative for when they flip their Sabine, and then just immediately kill it with your Childson.
Yeah, okay, so and to deny the potential steadfast battalion play. Do you ever play entrenched on your own Childson?
No, I did play entrenched on my own Iden several times though.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because Iden just is a blowout. There's a certain play pattern against Sabine, especially if you have the initiative, where it's just a nightmare for them. Where you could put your 2 resources down on turn 1, take initiative, don't even play anything on the first turn. They play something, you power of the dark side them, so kill whatever they played. They play something on turn 3, and then you play a Childson for 6/6. So now we're on the 4 resource turn. You have a 6/6 Childson with Sentinel, and they haven't done any damage to you. And we're getting closer and closer to those Iden, Cargo Juggernaut, Vigilance turns. Like it gets real bad for them.
Gotcha. So those were the Sabine Green matches. How did the Sabine Red go?
Eh, I did lose one game against the Sabine Red in round 6. I lost another round against the Sabine Green or something, but the Sabine Red was a little scarier. It has the aggression, of course, and aggression is just a great card against like all my important stuff. kills Childson, kills Iden straight out.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I mean, even in the quarterfinals or semifinals, it was just I kind of threw stuff out there and had to make him have the aggression there.
Hmm.
You also don't feel too bad when they aggression your thing if you're not so far behind because they're kind of spending their turn doing that. So it's almost like they're open firing something on your, which is not ideally what you want to do as a aggressive deck. Is spend your turn not really progressing a lot if you don't have stuff on the board. The
Yeah.
game I oh sorry.
As a Sabine Red player, if you play aggression to kill Childson, that feels like good. I mean, it's like you answered like a big problem of theirs or whatever, but you didn't develop your own board. The times when aggression feels really good is when you not only it's when it's like the system patrolcraft or something, or the Gamorrean guards from Boba, and you not only do the 4 damage, but you also get to ready one of your own units and hit them again to like put more pressure on. That's when that card feels just crazy.
Yeah, there were a couple plays that were like that where they like aggression something like a system patrol craft and then untap their Sabine. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I had another action to do something and I think I killed the Sabine. There was definitely some scary things there. The game I lost, the guy had it was after sideboard and he played all 3 wolves and all
Mm,
3 Saw Gerreras too
yeah.
in this same game. So that was just
Oh
very
wow, he,
difficult
he
for me.
saw all 3 of those in one game, or all
All
six of
three,
those.
all 6 of
Oh,
them, all
that's
very,
nasty.
very good cards against me.
Yeah, yeah. So Wolf and Saw are both like, there are some matchups where they're not the best, but like against something that has this much healing, and especially Saw against something that has this many events, you're getting some real value from that ability potentially. But you
Yeah,
were able to get that one 2-1 though.
yeah, I did win that one 2-1. I don't remember the exact matchups or the win rate. It should be on Melee somewhere though. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do specifically remember I lost. No, actually, hold on. The game that he played all 3 of both of them, I won that game. That was the third game. He beat me the
That's
second. He
crazy.
beat me the second game because he had initiative, and then the third game I
Mm.
had initiative, which made it a lot more difficult for him.
Initiative can matter a lot with that because, like you were describing, the play pattern where on turn two you go power the dark side, Childson, a bunch of stuff like that. Depending on the initiative, it can influence things. Like if you have the initiative, you can play like a Viper or an Inferno 4 on the first turn if you want, and then potentially trade with some of their stuff later. And there's a downside to that because it makes your Childson smaller. But like, if you do Viper and they play an A-Wing and then you get to do Power of the Dark Side, that's very different from if they play the A-Wing and then you have to either take initiative or let the A-Wing swing. The initiative can matter a lot in this game.
Yeah, it was very important, especially against the Sabine matchups. Um, Childson against the Sabine Red, you don't mind playing something on turn 1, turn 2, and then playing a Childson to be a 5/5 because
Yeah.
it still dies to the aggression anyway. It does open up some play patterns where like you can heroic sacrifice to kill it with a 3/3 or something like that, but it's not too bad, and it's also fairly nice to keep up your tempo against them, playing stuff on the board that can at least fight. So
Yeah,
that
and
was
if they
generally my plan.
if they want to also, they can send a 3/3 into Childson and then Tarkin Town him anyway, even if you play him at 6. So like, you do gain something there, but less than you gain against some of the other decks that don't have those ways to kind of outmaneuver Childson with Target Town and aggression.
Yeah, so the math is probably like try and hit your drops every turn, even though your Charlton's only going to be a 5/5 because it's probably going to die to those combinations of cards from Sabine Red anyway.
Yeah, though that being said, like you said earlier, initiative matters. It's plausible that if they have initiative and play A-Wing, you just pass so that you can kill it before you take 3 or 5 if they have a wing leader or a fleet lieutenant.
Yeah, for 100%. That's usually that was what I was trying to do. Um, Thankfully, in the top cut, the higher seed had initiative, so even when I played Sabine in the top cut, it was I had initiative going into the first
Oh,
game.
cool. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and that was, that's like we were saying, initiative is nice. So then you did have a Boba match, I believe, in round seven. How'd that go?
It was very easy. He So Curtis was the guy playing the Boba, and I played him twice. I actually played him in the finals too. But he was an extremely good Boba player. He was the only one in top 16 that was playing Boba at all, much less Boba
Wow.
Green.
Okay.
Um, so that should give you an idea of the kind of stuff they were fighting against all day was just stuff that was very good against them. But
Interesting.
it it was just a nightmare. Like all my cards are very good against them. My plan against Boba is not to mill them either. It's just I get rid of all their stuff that matters, and eventually I'm just going to avenge them out. It's basically the
Yeah,
same as
yeah.
Spain as aggro. Um,
Right.
but
Avenger is
there,
kind of your win condition, not the mill tactics, because you probably want to use vigilance for removal.
yeah, use vigilance for removal a lot. I am your fathers were incredible in that matchup. Not so much in Sabine matchup. It was okay because you have so much life gain that if you draw three cards early, it's not you can usually come back regardless. But against Boba, like they play a Vader or something and they can't ambush because you don't have anything in the usually don't have anything worth ambushing in the ground arena, and it kills it, or they can let me draw three cards, and we're on like seven resources, so I could probably do more stuff with those cards. He he hated me playing that card. He was visibly upset whenever I played that card because it's like it's one of his few threats. He needs to have a threat on the board to win, otherwise it's game's just going to keep getting out of hand. So he kind of has to let me draw three cards and just hope I brick on all three drops or all three draws.
Yeah, I am your father. It's an interesting card. Opponent's choice cards are unpopular with a lot of people, and they do tend to be bad. But if you're in that situation where both of the effects are really good for you, you are getting something very efficient. Three for three cards is, I've seen some people play in the red Iden builds. I've seen some people even playing mission briefing, which is three to draw two cards. So, if you're doing I am your father and you're doing three for three cards because the opponent can't afford to lose that unit, you're getting some high efficiency on that one.
Yeah, even if it's open fire for seven, that's really good. It's
Yeah,
basically
open, I wish my open fires hit for seven. That would be
yeah,
pretty strong.
that'd be fantastic. But like 90% of the time, it was they had me draw three cards unless it was just obvious that they couldn't let me draw three cards.
Got it.
Um, it was surprisingly good all day.
Cool. Okay. So then, so with that being your round seven against, I believe it was 8 rounds of Swiss. Is that right?
Yeah, 8 rounds of Swiss.
So then you had one final Sabine match in the round of eight. How was that?
That it was just as easy as all the other ones. This Sabine was Blake, and he was the only undefeated player at the time.
Okay.
And for some reason, they didn't give me a feature match, all Swiss.
Hmm.
I think kind of like the impression that people had early on with the Iden Blue deck was like, that's interesting that you're doing that, but like no one was taking it seriously. Like people would come around and look and kind of like shrug and then walk away. And then as we
Yeah.
started getting to the top tables, it was like I hear people whispering like Childson's so good. Oh my God, Vigilance for four. And I'm sitting there playing a guy and I'm like, okay, like yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, so did those attitudes kind of shift as you progressed through the tournament? Like at first people thinking, "Oh, double blue, that's cute," but then later people being like, "Oh, there's something there."
Yeah, it was definitely like that. So even like playing against like the early round opponents, they were like, "Oh, double blue, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah."
They're like, "Yeah, double
And
blue, let's go, man."
they were like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And they were like, "It'd be so cool if you won," like implying that I'm at a disadvantage because it's double blue. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, okay, so with that, so you were kind of the pair down or whatever, where there was only one undefeated player. You played against him and you actually got the win. So you ultimately went 7-1 in Swiss, and I think you said you were first placed after Swiss. Is that right?
Yes, I was first seeded going into the
Nice.
top cut, which was also very important because again, the higher seed gets initiative in the first game. So the whole game, the whole top cut, I would have had initiative going in the first game.
Nice. And then, so the top cut was a little unusual. So you guys played the top 16, and you played against one of the Sabine Green players you had already played, and were again able to get the win. Was there anything particularly different about that match, or was it just more of the same?
Uh, it was more the same. I might have even dropped a game to him there.
Okay.
Um, he was a pretty good Sabine player. I think his name was Noah, but I think like the third game, I had like two child sins for 6/6, even after he like had to put two units into it to kill it, and it was just real rough for him.
Yeah, that's nasty. And so you got the win in the top 16, and then once it reached the top eight agreed on a prize split. Is that right?
Yeah, so we had split the remaining prizes because prizes went out to all the top 16, and then top eight we had split the remaining prizes.
Okay. And then some of the players left at that point because they only cared about the cash or whatever, but then some of the players played on to see who would get the trophy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they only cared about the cash because that seems
Okay,
a
okay.
little callous. Um, it was just a long, we had already been playing for like 10 and a half hours or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
no,
that.
it's a crazy number of games. So like if you've
It,
played,
yeah,
if you've played 8 round Swiss plus a top 16, that's 9 matches, and you've
yeah,
probably played like 20 games and or more. 20 is actually a low amount. Like the minimum you could have played at that point would be 18 if every single match was a 2-0, and that is not likely.
yeah. It was already a really long day, so the prospect of like playing another 3 hours potentially or more because there was no time limit. So if you're playing against control, it might take longer. Just for the trophy wasn't worth it for them, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair. And
Which
I also I apologize. Yeah, I shouldn't say they only cared about the money. I should
no,
just say, the prospect of playing for, 2 or 3 more hours, only competing for the trophy, they decided they would rather cut it there, get some more sleep or whatever.
yeah, I mean, even I considered doing that, to be fair. Like it was a very long day. Um,
But you
it,
didn't. You played it on, and top four you had another match against Sabine Red. Was this the same player on Sabine Red that you'd played earlier?
no, it was a different Sabine. This was Garrett, he's the guy who was fairly local to me, but I didn't meet him yet.
Okay.
It was about the same. I think I 2-0'd him in that game.
Okay.
Um, it's just pretty hard for Sabine. Uh, I mean, all the Sabines sided in Wolf against me, but Wolf on its own isn't enough to really do anything. You
He
block like
helps, but
one
he's
turn.
not. Yeah, he helps, but he's
Yeah,
not amazing. It's one of the
yeah.
like it's kind of funny too because your deck has some cards that are like really bad against Sabine. And like to be clear, I'm not saying this to attack your deck or whatever. They're clearly there
No,
for
no,
other
no.
matchups. So like
Yeah.
Spark of Rebellion for 6 is not good against Sabine, probably. Restock is
No.
not usually good against Sabine. I Am Your Father is not useless against Sabine, but it's a lot better in some other matchups. But
Oh, yeah. All three of those
Vigilance
cards
for
got sided out.
4
Yeah.
Vigilance for 4 is sick against Sabine. Like, Vigilance for 4 is awesome. Cargo Juggernaut is that's a lot of healing. And Iden, the leader card herself, is a lot of healing.
Yeah. It's Restock, Sparks, and I first forgot what the other card was, but yeah, all three of those cards. I'm your father. Yeah, those all got sided out. So I sided out like 7 or 8 cards against Sabine every match.
Yeah.
But having the 3 Sparks in the main deck, it didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt me at all. I played against 6 Sabines and 2 Leia Reds. It
Yeah.
was not an issue for having 3 cards. I think generally in the game you can play 3 cards that are good, really, really good in a specific matchup, and just resource them and the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly right. So I think the resource system in this game allows you to run more tech cards and also actually the draw two per turn. So if you're playing
Yeah.
like Magic the Gathering and you're drawing one card per turn and you can't turn cards into resources and you draw a card that's dead in your current matchup, that's like everything you drew that turn. That could be a huge setback. In this game, when you're drawing two cards per turn, and if you draw a card that's dead in the matchup, that can be your resource. Sure, there are some situations, especially late in the game, where you might regret seeing that card, but the overall risk is a lot lower than in some other similar games.
Yeah, yeah. So with it not hurting me, I was pretty comfortable putting three of those in the main deck because it can
Nice.
win you a very important matchup too.
So then, with the victory over Sabine Red for the top four, you went on to the finals against the Boba Green player that you had played in the second to last round of Swiss.
Yep, yep. I played him again, Curtis once again. He was not happy a lot of the time during the match. Both the last two matches, by the way, were feature matches, so they'll be on YouTube at some point. The
Cool.
Sabine Red and the
Was there
Boba Green.
commentary and stuff, or was it just player audio, or how'd they do that?
It wasn't live streamed. The gentleman recorded it. I think it was Next Gen Gaming SC, and he was gonna essentially what he does is he records the games, and then he like edits them and does commentary over them, and then releases them.
Oh,
Almost
cool.
makes it feel like almost it's live. So those last two games will definitely be on that website. But yeah, the Boba deck. He even had some good cards that were good against me, like he had sideboarded confiscate tech to prevent me from just blowing
Entrenched.
out his Boba. He had relentless, but it's just too much for that deck for right now. I should also mention that I think the meta is gonna evolve yet again.
Yep.
Like I don't think this deck is. I think this deck is particularly good against again the three card decks that I was expecting and that I played a lot against. That it was the right choice for the right event. I
Yeah.
could
But
see
you're not saying I have the ultimate deck. No one can stop
no,
Iden Blue. No, no.
no, not at all. It's got bad matchups for sure. Like Han Green is definitely not a good matchup because they just have all the value ever. But
Yeah, I think some of those Han Green also has a lot of the like return stuff, with the home one, with the Rogue Squadron skirmisher, and it can be tough to like stop all their things with one for one removal. And like
yeah,
in theory you can of course wipe them with Super Laser Blast, but what happens if you spend 8 resources on Super Laser Blast and then they play U-Wing and bring out 3 more units? That's not really what you want to see.
yeah. The guy I tested with was a good buddy of mine. He ended up playing Han Green because it was just that good. Fortunately, he did not get make the top cut. He was very close, but yeah, it's not a deck that's particularly favored. I think it's probably like 35% chance that I win, and it usually involves being aggressive with milling them and hoping to get their U-Wings or their home ones in the graveyard. Because if you
Got it.
do that, it's just one less big threat you have to worry about.
Right. But overall you would consider that a pretty unfavorable matchup.
Oh yeah, it's got to be 35% chance to win.
Yeah. But also, Han Green isn't as commonly played as some of those other ones. So like, I think there's a factor where if your deck has a 30% chance to win against like Sabine, you probably shouldn't play that deck. And, no offense to people who did, but like a lot of people are playing Sabine. And, similarly, if your deck has a 30% chance to win against Boba Green, I think it's very risky to play that deck. But you can accept a 30% chance to win against something that isn't as common in the meta. And you can just be like, well, I hope I don't line up against that. If I do line up against that, maybe I'll get lucky. But if not, I don't have to win every round to make the cut.
Yeah, exactly. But that just depends on what's there at the time. Essentially, like there may be the next 4K might have 20 Han Greens, and you're just gonna run into them left and right, and it would be really bad to play this deck if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like you said earlier, and this is something that I've heard other experienced players talk about as well. I think Bobby Sapphire from KTOD was talking about this earlier as well. Um, you have to have a deck not that's like you're not really looking for like some ultimate deck in theory because like honestly that might well not exist. Like if you can find it, great, good job. But like a lot of what you want is the deck that's appropriate for the specific day and the specific event that you're going to. And and that involves sort of trying to predict what the meta is going to be, not just overall at that time, but also what it's going to be like at your specific store or your specific area. And that can vary in a lot of different places.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I said this yesterday because people were complaining about the Vigilance decks basically just like the Boba decks a month ago, where everybody thought it was just too good, too good. This is like, no, you're all wrong. The meta's not been solved. There's no best deck. There's a best deck to bring to a presumptive field against other decks, and that's what you should play if you want to win a big event. But there's no best deck. It's just it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think there's a situation where if the game is pretty balanced overall, and I think they've actually done a quite strong job with balance for this game. Um,
100%.
but but if the game is pretty balanced overall, you may not be able to find something that is just good against the entire field, but that's actually good. Because if there is something that's good against the entire field, it's a problem. I played Star Wars Legion. At one point in Star Wars Legion, there was a meta where there was a specific list, or there were two versions of a specific list, which was it was like a clone list, and it was so good that it was like, in my opinion, it was like S tier, way above everything else. And it was actually so good that it was at the point where I'm like, if you went to a major event and you're not playing this, you're wrong. Like it's just incorrect to be playing any other build because of how powerful this is. And that's
Yeah.
actually something super negative for a game. And the Star Wars Legion developers correctly changed some things to prevent that build from being so dominant, because as much as it's exciting for players to think like, oh, can I find the ultimate deck or whatever, truth be told, if there is an ultimate deck that's super good against everything else, that's actually not good for the game as a whole, even if it's exciting to be the one who finds it.
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't be healthy. It would make people upset. I mean, people are already upset playing against like this deck. It's not fun to play against this deck, to be fair.
Yeah, I know a lot of people get frustrated by playing against control, especially like this sort of hard control. And I think traditionally aggro has often been able to beat control, but faced with Iden's healing plus vigilance for 4, plus some of the other healing tech and so on, I can see why it would be a real struggle for some of these Sabine builds.
Yeah, that's another reason I went to the double blue was it's better than the blue red decks against the Sabines. It's just got more staying power, and
Yeah,
eventually
you
you just win.
you do lose out on some stuff. So you lose out on open fire and forced choke. You lose out on the interceptor, which is pretty good. But vigilance for 4 is also pretty good.
Vigilance 4 is good, especially when you can, search your feelings for it. It turns out that you really don't need to have all the answers, you just have to have the right answers.
Gotcha. So here's a question. You're playing double blue, but the only one of the 3 double blue cards that you're playing is Vigilance. We don't see Bendu and we don't see Protector in this build. Did you consider playing those cards at all?
Not Protector. The deck did start with Bendu in it, and it was in place of the Cargo
Cargo
Juggernauts.
Juggernaut. Yep.
Actually, the deck started as Krennic just because I had Krennic lying around when I first built it, and I was playing Bendus instead of the Cargo Juggernauts. And then it's like Iden's on 6, Cargo's on 6. It's kind of hard to remove Iden a lot of the times, and the matchups that
Yeah.
matter. So it just kind of lines up really well for when you
Yeah,
want to turn the
I
corner anyway.
I had done some testing with a Krennic double blue deck, and I wasn't really satisfied with where I got that. But this one that you're running, I think, is more refined than what I had used.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I would probably make some sideboard changes, maybe even some main deck changes. I did, siding out 7 cards virtually every game is probably not ideal,
And what were
but
those cards you were? Oh, because you played so many aggro games, you were citing out the I Am Your Father, Spark, Restock.
yeah, every time I was siding out those cards. I'd bring in devotion, making openings. You can argue that you didn't need to bring in making openings against Sabine, but it just kind of lined up well with their post board wolves and
Yeah.
Disabled Fang Fighters both have 2 health, so it's just a
Right.
quick, easy way to kill those. And then Dooku, I usually side into. Dooku's a lot better than I gave him credit for sure. Being able to kill something like in space and then be a shielded unit that can just mop or stop up the ground unit. He was very good against the aggro decks.
Cool. I've noticed also, I don't think we've talked about this card. In your sideboard, you also have an two out of aspect bounty hunter crews. So my assumption, which you can correct me on, would be that the bounty hunter crews are another tool for those control mirrors, try to get like a key event back. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it's there for like the mid-range, later mid-range kind of decks and the control decks, being able to get
Okay.
vigilance back, or for whatever reason, if they mill both your restocks with the vigilance, you don't just auto lose against the match.
Got it.
I
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
I did, yeah,
because you can get lucked out otherwise if they happen to hit your restocks.
yeah. So they'd have to hit all 4 of the cards there. It's also just against mid-range, being able to super laser blast, play the guy, probably ambush something, get a super laser blast back against mid-range. It's just really strong.
Yeah, it does seem strong. Okay. Cool stuff, man. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting build, and I think it's also very innovative. Now, if I recall correctly, there was another player who won an event with double blue Iden on Sunday, but that was not you. What do you know about that?
Yeah. So the head judge of the tournaments in Richmond on 4K and the 1K on Sunday, he posted last night that Iden Double Blue won the 1K as well,
Okay.
and it was weird because the guy who had played or won the 1K, he played in the Saturday 4K too, but he definitely wasn't playing Iden. I was the only person playing Iden Blue. So I was trying to figure it out, and the way the tournament or the head judge worded it made it seem like he was essentially playing the same deck as me. And I
Okay.
forgot that I was so tired, but I did post the deck list in Discord that night, like late Saturday night. So he
Okay.
could have just played the same deck list. I think Ryback's done made a video about the 4K and did a recap a little bit about the deck, and I I had mentioned about it. Like, that's pretty interesting that someone did that. He commented today on the guy who won the 1K, and he's like, "Yeah, it was pretty much the same deck. He had people watching my game as I was playing it, either top 8 or top 16 or something like that, and they were texting him cards as he was in the hotel to put
Yeah,
in the deck."
that's the sometimes people would do that for like scouting or whatever to try to prep somebody for a later match, but they were doing it so that he could copy the deck for the next day. That's crazy.
Yeah, it wasn't exact. I think he only had one spark he could use, and he put the restocks in the board, but apparently it worked out very well for him.
Okay. Well, hey,
But
that's I think that's a seal of approval for the deck if someone was able to copy it with, much less extensive practice than you had and get a win himself.
yeah, that is actually pretty cool. Woke up today to seeing that, and I was like, It feels pretty good, man. I'm glad he won. That's great."
Yeah. Okay, so I think this is a really interesting build, and thanks for coming on and sharing more info about the deck and your story with it. Is there anything else you'd like to add for the viewers?
Yes, I was very, very upset that John Tata was one of the 4 people that left the top 8.
You wanted to
John
play against
Tata
him?
John Tata is maybe one of the best, if not the best, Sabine players in the country right
Mm.
now.
And you wanted
He,
to test your skills against a real Sabine veteran.
yeah, I mean, not to throw any shade on the Sabines that I played, but John Tata is just he's another level because he knows the deck inside and out. I think I would he thinks he'd probably win. I'll be honest with you, but I think my deck it has a track record of beating Sabine anyway, and then having the initiative because of the seeding. I
Because
think
of the
I
seeding.
probably would have won that matchup, but it's very upsetting to me that I didn't get to play him. Even if I lost, that would have been a great game to get on on camera.
On the stream. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or
Yeah.
on the recording. Yeah, absolutely. So hey, shout out to John Tata, and maybe you guys are gonna have to play out that match at another event.
I certainly hope so.
Okay. Any other final thoughts before we close this one up?
Not at all, but thank you for having me on.
Yeah, okay. Jordan, aka Sauce, thank you so much for being here and sharing this information on the deck. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Thanks to y'all for watching, and we'll be back later with some more Star Wars Unlimited content. I will catch you guys later.